Hello, everyone. My name is Dan Casey. I'm going to be your professor for Critical Reasoning Philosophy 105. As I indicated in my initial announcement, this was kind of sprung on me at the last minute. Unfortunately, your professor, who's to be Alan Sobel, had a family emergency and it's going to require his attention for some period of time. So I volunteered to take over at least one of his sections, and you are the lucky, you are the lucky group. Uh, I want to take this opportunity to first talk about the background, my background a little bit, at least in terms of teaching this course, and then about the course itself and how it's going to be conducted. I've taught critical reasoning, I don't know how many years now, I guess at least 15 years, almost as long, maybe as long as they've had critical reasoning in the curriculum, it seems. All the other classes that I've taught in critical reasoning, all the other courses I have taught in critical reasoning have been on campus. So this is going to be a new experience for me in a limited way, in that I have taught online courses before, more than a half a dozen at this point, or roughly maybe a half a dozen at this point. But they have all been the types of courses that require essay exams rather than multiple choice, fill in the blank, true and false question exams. My initial thinking in the announcement that I sent out to you is that I was not going to be able to manage that over Blackboard Learn. I have since discovered that this can indeed be done, and you will not be required, that I can see, to be on campus for any testing or quizzes. I'm sure that some of you are relieved about that. Let's turn more directly, however, and talk about the course. First of all, there will be weekly lectures. The lectures will be VoiceThread lectures accompanied by a slideshow. In addition, we are going to have, as I said, 2 quizzes and 2 exams, a midterm and a final exam. I have, as resources, in the past, been able to find some YouTube videos which may help to illustrate certain points in logic for you. And there may be other documents. There will be other documents that I'm going to be putting up which I think will be of value to you. Some things we're required to put up. The link to Drexel Libraries, the link to Drexel Policy and Resources, the link to Disability Resources. These will all be available to you on the course homepage. What kind of a course is this? You can teach critical reasoning from a number of angles, two primary angles. The first, which I do not use, although some of our faculty do use this approach, is to treat it as a course almost in rhetoric, and that is take samples of language and analyze them using both logic and what seemed almost to me like literary criticism in your analysis. I do not favor that approach. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I'm sure that some people take that approach and do very well with it. Instead, what I do is teach critical reasoning as an introduction to logic, one that deals with logic not so much in its recent incarnation as mathematical logic, but rather the traditional logic that has been taught in some form or another in the West since the time of Aristotle. So, what we can do is take a look at the topics that we will consider during the course of the quarter. Before I do that, I am now looking at the syllabus on my second screen, and so there is a little bit of information that I want to give you there, or have you refer to there. First of all, we will have scheduled appointments at first, a scheduled appointment hour at first, a scheduled meeting hour at first. I find that after several weeks, I have found in other courses that virtually nobody is calling in during this time, and that's fine. That's fine. If you have no need to contact me, that's fine. If you want to contact me by other methods, the primary methods that students seem to favor in online courses is by email. That's fine. If you need to talk to me, however, we can meet at Blackboard Learn, or we can Skype. So after the first several weeks, if I'm not really getting much response, I will stop the scheduled office hours over Blackboard Learn, Blackboard Collaborate, and go to go to appointments in which individual students contact me and ask to speak. Now, again, we can do this by email. We can do it by Skype as well. So feel free to contact me at any time. My phone number, my email address are contained on the syllabus, and I would urge you to refer to these. In terms of the topical outline, let's take a look at what we'll be doing. Our textbook is Logic, A Concise Introduction to Logic, and it is by Patrick Hurley, and this particular edition is the 12th edition. Texts are expensive, so as far as I'm concerned, you can also use the 11th edition. There's really no problem with doing that. There will be some slight difference in the examples and the exercises, but the differences are not significant enough that you can't use the 11th edition as well. When I called the bookstore just yesterday to place the book order, I was told that the 13th edition is due out this month. There's some possibility that they'll get this in, although I think that the 12th editions probably will be what shows up. You are also free to buy used texts. I know the texts are expensive, as I've said. We will be looking at, not all of the text for this particular course, chapters 1 through 4, and I will indicate to you what sections in those chapters that we will not cover. And chapter 9 and 10. Chapter 9 dealing with arguments from analogy, and chapter 10 dealing with Mill's methods of induction, John Stuart Mill's methods of induction. The first chapter we will look at are basic concepts. In this chapter, you'll be introduced to what the study of logic consists in, the examination of arguments, the structure of arguments. We'll talk about the sorting out arguments from non-arguments. We'll also look at the two major types of logic, deductive logic and inductive logic, and the arguments that can be presented in each of these. And then finally, we'll be looking at certain important concepts for logic: validity, truth, soundness, strength, cogency. These concepts will be examined, and we'll talk about them. That will be over the first couple of weeks. It will take us 2 weeks to get through the basic concepts section. We will then turn to chapter 2, which is on language, meaning, and definition. We'll talk about the varieties of meaning. We'll introduce important concepts, the intension and extension of terms. We'll talk about terms. And then we get on to definitions and their purposes, types of definition and the definitional techniques. We then move on to informal fallacies. We will look at ways in which arguments in inductive logic can go wrong. Deductive logic, you can have fallacies in that, but they are formal fallacies that are due to the structure of the argument. In inductive arguments, and again, we will look to see what the difference is between inductive and deductive arguments. In inductive arguments, it's not only the structure, but also the content at times that can go wrong, and this is what we will be focusing on in the third chapter. We will spend several weeks, couple at least, and maybe a little more than 2, looking at chapter 4. In chapter 4, you have your first foray, I expect, into formal techniques, formal proof techniques in deductive logic, and that will be exclusively about deductive logic. And what we will be looking at in chapter 4, the sections that we cover, are the type of logic that was developed by Aristotle in the 4th century BCE, and then polished further, developed further throughout the course of a couple of millennia. So this logic has been around, this approach to logic has been around for quite some time. We'll end up the course with 2 chapters on inductive logic. They will be a bit shorter. It should take us about a week each. One on analogy and legal and moral reasoning. Well, not so much the moral reasoning, but analogy and legal reasoning. That is chapter 9. And then finally, another chapter on inductive logic, examining Mill's methods for the inductive approach to science. You will have as well regular homework assignments, getting away from the topical outline. You'll have regular homework assignments. However, I am not going to require you to hand these assignments in. That amounts to an awful lot of material that I would have to be receiving online. What I will do is indicate to you what exercises you should look at. The exercises that you should look at will mirror or help you to understand the content of the quizzes and midterm and final exam. So these will be important to you. And then after I have assigned the exercises to you at some point very late that week or the following week, I will provide you with the answers to those exercises so that you can see. There is one of our herd of cats in the background. The exercises that you will be able to see the answers to the exercises to have some idea whether you are on the right track or not. And if you feel that you are not on the right track, please contact me. You don't want to get lost here. The only other thing I want to say at this point is that the course has two parts. We will cover material mentioned up to the midterm. Then we will have a quiz prior to the midterm, and then we will have a midterm. And then we will carry forward with new material in the second half, which will be from chapter 4 forward. And then we will have a second quiz and a final. And the second quiz and final will cover material only from the midterm forward, the new material starting with week 6 or whatever it is in there. And I will indicate to you when that takes place. So you will not have to have an accumulated knowledge of the material that we have. So this allows you to forget it even more quickly than you ordinarily would have to. I'm only kidding. I think. Look over the syllabus. The course requirements are there. The weight of the various quizzes and exams are shown. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. And for now, what I'll say is simply, welcome to Engineering Ethics.